The video that we watched in the symposium this morning was a really hard-hitting video about some of the real issues that affect people and that trade and standards professionals are dealing with. We went back to 2001 and we looked at foot and mouth. We looked at horsegate. We looked at some of the current product safety issues around tumble dryers. We looked at the tragedy of Grenfell Tower and the complete picture that painted about the importance of regulation, protecting people and protecting the most vulnerable people. And I think one of the points that I'm really concerned to make about that is that trade and standards officers do a vital job, and it's an important job for protecting people, keeping people safe, keeping people alive, and that without the work of trade and standards, then people are at risk in all sorts of areas, consumer detriment, food, and my area is product safety, and that's an important part of that. So one of the things I want to say is that trade and standards' broad range of activity is something we should be more confident about talking about, and making sure that people understand that. And who are the people who need to understand that? Well, first of all consumers need to understand the work that local people are doing for them in their locality. And when we get that message right, then we get local opinion formers, elected members, councillors. That's the local government, and that's where some of those decisions are made. But of course, my role is as part of national government. So I've got a responsibility for making sure that ministers understand that there's a parliamentary debate, there's a national debate about the important work that trade and standards officers do. So my responsibility within that is product safety, metrology, hallmarking. There's a wider conversation going on, and the forthcoming white paper will have an enforcement section that looks at the importance of local enforcement, regional enforcement, the work that NTS do, and also national work that people like OPSS, Food Standards Agency and others do. For product safety, which is one of my key areas, we focus on three things really that are driving the current agenda. One is current issues, current events, current incidents, and that affects things like white goods, lasers, fireworks, and those are real issues that we're grappling with and working with local authorities on. Then there's the consequence of EU exit, the fact that as we leave the EU, we need to ensure that we've got a resilient system in the UK for data sharing, for enforcement, for market surveillance, working with our European colleagues depending on the outcome of the deal, but making sure that we can protect people and support business in the UK. And then the third area is very much about looking forward, as you say. The way that we regulate, the products that we regulate, will be very different in a few years' time. If we go back a few years, we used to go into shops and buy goods. Now, a lot of goods are bought over the internet. Something like 48% of people regularly buy goods over the internet. Some of those are bought directly from people outside, not just the UK, but the EU. They may never have seen a business in the UK. How do we regulate those goods? How do we ensure they're safe? But moving forward, the actual physical goods may never move. It may well be that we print them at home on 3D printers. It's the software that we'll be buying. What sort of regulators do we need to be to deal with those issues? And how do we utilise that same technology to be more effective?
You spoke in your presentation this morning about some of the complications that can arise when trying to enforce product safety. The idea of a recall of dangerous fridges, for example, raising a public health risk around gone-off food. How do you approach unpicking some of these complicated and interconnected areas of risk?
We've got to be really clear that we are giving effective and safe messages to consumers right across the piece. The particular example that you talk about there was an example that followed shortly after the tragedy of Grenfell Tower, when it became clear that the fire had started in or close to a fridge freezer. And we were looking at the question of whether that fridge freezer was safe. And some people argued that on a precautionary principle, until we knew it was safe, we should tell people not to use that model of fridge freezer. But there were hundreds of thousands of those fridge freezers in use across the UK. It was a very hot summer. People rely on fridges for safety of food, safety of medicines. And so what we did was we convened scientific experts from across government to look at the balance of risk. And it was clear to them that the balance of risk said, test those products, make sure we understand those products, but do not tell people to turn them off until we know what the risks are in that area. Because we know there are risks about telling people not to use fridge freezers in warm weather. And so it's bringing that expertise together. We don't hold all of that, but we talk to Public Health England, we talk to the Health and Safety Executive, we talk to the Food Standards Agency, we talk to the Home Office DEFRA and so on. And it's when we can get that collective wisdom together that we can really get the right messages. When we talk about empowering consumers, it's important that we get simple, straightforward, usable messages. We want to be transparent with consumers, we want to give consumers information. But if we overburden consumers with too much information, what we know from all the research is that they will move back from the conversation and they've got lots of other things, they've got busy lives. So giving people simple, straightforward, accurate, usable messages does work. And we're currently carrying out some research with consumers to see what would motivate them to take those effective actions, whether that's registering their product, responding to a recall, using their product safely, contacting Trade and Standards for advice when that's appropriate. We want to make sure they're empowered for all of those actions, and what we need to know is what will work most effectively. Many of us have become familiar with nudge techniques, behavioural insights. We know there's a rich source of information there, but we want to make sure we use that well, and we use it based on good sound evidence, and so that's a big part of what we're doing. We're committed to making sure that that information is available to local authority trade and standards professionals so they can use that right at the front line with their local communities to resolve issues that matter for them. This symposium, organised by CTSI, is absolutely wonderful because it brings together so many people in one place. The biggest single thing we're doing actually is listening. We need to know what is the real experience of frontline officers, heads of service, and I had a wonderful session with about 25 of them this morning where we just had an opportunity to hear what their concerns were. And that's probably the single biggest thing we're doing. Second to that, yes, we've got some messages we want to get over to people about the services that we're offering, the partnership we're doing with them, things like access to British standards, which is now free of charge, things like the product recall standard, the training that we're offering, training on risk, training on product safety more generally, our aspirations for metrology and a better approach to weighing and measuring and connecting with those people. So we have got some messages, and it's a really great opportunity to do that. We've got some wonderful masterclasses and seminars and so on. But the biggest thing actually is about the dialogue, the opportunity to listen and to hear from people who've got great stories and great experiences.